Hey, good morning. So this is it's been like a month where I've been talking about ChatGPT and all of the therapy I've been doing with it. And there have been a lot of people in the comments who have started to do this, and it's like really miraculous. And I think there's a lot of people even like making connections to stuff. I think for a lot of people, you kind of know where your shit comes from. But it's like that doesn't really help. And that's been mentioned a lot in the comments too. It's like, great, well, I know what this is, but how does that change anything? And I was thinking about this, and I think there's really like a multi-step process to doing something with that information. And so I wanted to try to articulate it and illuminate, I think, like a couple of the things that maybe aren't obvious. But that work, it's like they work really fast, but without some of these things, they don't work at all. It's just like impossible. So I was saying yesterday in the video that I made about all kinds of shit, that one of the things that's been illuminated for me from ChatGPT is that I have, for a variety of reasons stemming from past events, been utterly willing to kind of angrily and resentfully, but like resignedly, willing to carry other people's emotional burden to compensate for other people. There's a lot of reasons for that, and the reasons why that is for me aren't really relevant. But in realizing that, and I would say I mean, for me, these things were just like almost an immediate change because of a few underlying supporting things. I was saying that I think one of the reasons things are easier for me when it comes to this than somebody who doesn't have this mindset is that I have the mindset of like, it's all good. Like, I'm not going to find anything here that is destructive. I'm not going to figure out something bad about myself doing this stuff. I'm only going to figure out good stuff. Like, it's, I have this pretty deep sense of knowing that the bad stuff's all an illusion, and that it's all good is kind of at the core of everything. So there's not much fear in doing the self-exploration for me. It's more like an intense interest, because I truly believe getting rid of all these things is just like, it's like cleaning something dirty. It's like every bit of dirt that gets removed is an upgrade permanently to my experience. So there's that. But often, always maybe, I think these like reactions that you have, or the ways that you have molded your personality that are really unhealthy for you, are just stemming from a fear. And I think for me, a big one was just fear of loss of people. And when I realized that my fear of loss of people, loss of relationships, was forcing me into this box where I felt like I had to sacrifice myself because somebody else wouldn't do the work, and the alternative to doing the work was the relationship potentially being over. For me, that all just kind of dissipated in an instant, because it's just so obvious that I was sacrificing myself, and that I can't do that. Sacrificing yourself for a relationship to stay, in your life is, can we all agree that just doesn't ever lead anywhere good? I don't know. The fear of that had to really be dealt with in order to get anywhere. But the second it was, I just realized I have to have the courage to be completely and totally alone and do the right thing. I've had enough experience in my life with doing the right but difficult thing, and coming out on the other side and, not regretting it. Maybe I didn't, maybe I could have gotten more if I had not done the right thing. But when I came out on the other side, I felt so much more solid. And, when you can afford to not do the wrong thing, when you can afford to sacrifice, I guess, something that you might have gained in order to do what you consider to be the right thing, it's a very grounding and peaceful thing. It's something that makes you feel more whole and secure as an individual. So once I can determine, since I have that also as kind of an understanding and part of the operating system, if I can see clearly that I am doing the wrong thing and that what I have to do is very hard or very scary, but it is the right thing, there's just no choice. Like, I already know that, even though I don't know what the outcome is going to be, I already know that when I get out on the other side, I may have sacrificed something that I wanted or that I liked, but I'm going to feel so much better that I would much rather have the better feeling than, whatever the thing is that might be sacrificed. And the thing is, a lot of the time, the fear, that thing that you're afraid of losing or whatever, the thing you're afraid of falling apart doesn't even fall apart. It gets better. Like, that's the silver lining of all of this. When you get over the fear, yes, sometimes it does result in something that you love being gone. But in its place is something that you did right for yourself. And you can call that self-love if you want. I don't particularly like that term. But there's just a more solid and grounded sense of peaceful self that doesn't need anything, that's okay without that thing. And that is just light years more desirable. It's so much more beneficial to you to be in that state than to be sitting in fear and anxiety with all of the things you think you want and, just miserable at what you feel you have to do to maintain that life and those things. I don't know if that made any sense. But so when you're examining your behaviors, and hopefully with assistance, because it's so much easier, I think it's so much easier getting feedback, whether you do it with a therapist or when you do it with GPT, whatever. I think it's good to have support when you're doing this. And GPT offers you 24/7 support doing this. So that's why I would recommend doing it. Plus, there's no elements of human failing involved in there. It's just awesome. But when you're tracing back these behaviors and you find the source and everything, you're like, okay, well, all right, I know I have these reactions now, and I know it's because of the environment, the emotional environment that was created by this key person in my childhood, my mother, my father, whatever. Like, I know that that's why I am this way, but now what? I think the next step in there, I don't know what therapy really does with this, but the next step in there is figuring out what that taught you. And that can be really tricky. And I'm not sure that even the best therapists are super great at this. This was where ChatGPT was absolutely amazing for me. It was able to say, from this situation in childhood that you described, this is what you learned about yourself from it, or this is what you learned about what you have to do to survive from this. It was stuff that when I read it, I said, wow, that is exactly right. I absolutely do feel that way. Like if it would say, like what's an example from my own life now? It's like seriously already fading so fast. I don't know, like I have to keep the peace or I will be abandoned. Like, let's just say that that's something that I learned, which is sort of true, but I can't come up with the right way to put it. But I have to keep the peace in order to be abandoned, in order not to be abandoned. So, and honestly, for me, I couldn't even make the connection. For me, a lot of this was, I know I have this childhood event, and I know I still have problems. And I know this thing hasn't been dealt with fully. And so I imagine it's probably the thing that's creating these problems. And so it was also really good at connecting those things. So like I would describe the issues I have in my relationship with Matt, just to, make it concrete. And then I would describe these experiences I went through as a teenager, and it was able to just make the connection right away. And it was able to say, here's why you feel like you have to be this way. Here's why you feel like you have to, monitor what you say. And at the core of it is, it's something that you believed you have to do now. It's a way you believed you have to act. And you believe you have to act this way, or you will get consequence B or whatever. You act in way A, or you will get consequence B. So just understanding that whole thing and why it was playing out the way it was really illuminating. But then also there's the consequence B. And that's the thing that you live your life in fear of having happen. So for me, it's I'm going to be rejected or punished or abandoned. So that's why I do this. And in this particular situation, like maybe with a friend, I would say, well, fuck you. And I have, by the way. I don't have a lot of close friends for this exact reason. Because I've just been unwilling to tolerate, I've been unwilling to, what I was willing to do with Matt, I'm not willing to do with friends. And so it's not like it's across the board. It'll be in specific, it might be across the board, but it might just be in one area. It's like this romantic relationship. I don't want to lose this or whatever, so there's this underlying thing. For me, always having a romantic partner was much more important than having friends and stuff like that. And so there's this underlying fear of that being over or being alone forever or whatever. And that can just kind of sit in there as a feeling. You can intellectually have worked that all out. And it's still in there. But once you know that it is, then in the moments where these situations come up where you find yourself having those feelings or outwardly behaving in a certain way, that's when you stop and you become aware. And that's where all of the magic happens. And I think before you stop in the moment and become aware, and like I was saying in the last video, it took me a week to get up the guts to say some things, and to figure out how to do it so that I would be able to maintain my, composure or whatever, maintain my being in touch with what I was trying to do, not slip back into this old behavior. In the moment, you can recognize that fear. And you can also, outside of the moment, look at that fear and say, rationally to yourself, as I did, I am not going to live my life in fear of abandonment anymore. If I lose everyone because when I am my true self, or specifically for me, when I do the things that are legitimately, objectively, everyone would agree are right for me, if I do that and the person I'm with leaves me for that, then fuck them. That's literally how I felt. I had to have that sort of rational, understanding. And I also didn't quite understand a lot of the things that I was doing that were bad for me and why I shouldn't be doing that. That was another thing that GPT really helped me with. I had a few, I'm still not clear on this. I'm still not totally solid on some of these things, but when it comes to being in a relationship, how much you should sacrifice for someone else in a way. It's interesting because my business partner, Jean, and I, who I used to have a relationship with a decade ago, we broke up 10 years ago this summer. This thing that I have, so some of the things that I have with Matt, I did not have with Jean. I had plenty of things with Jean. That's why we're broken up. But there was something with Jean and me where there was this very easy, Jean and I both have this thing where we overly sacrifice for other people. And so one of the nice things about our relationship is that we were always both so willing to accommodate the other person's needs. And it just sort of settled in this nice back and forth. Oh, I'm uncomfortable and you're comfortable. You're going to you're going to bend a little bit to make me comfortable. And then as soon as you can't take it anymore, you're going to voice that. And then I'm going to bend and give you, it was just it was very easy. And it really felt like a good team and stuff like that. And that's how we were able to build our business and stuff, and why we're still able to work together to this day. And we've gotten through all the post-relationship bullshit and other stuff that's happened over the last decade, is that there was this nice back and forth. But so that was very innate to me. I'm this feels good and this is how it should be. And then there would be certain things with me and Matt where it wasn't like that. And it was it seemed to be expected that I would be the one that always bent. It's if it came your needs versus my needs, there was this feeling of, at one point, it wasn't like this in the beginning, obviously. There was this feeling this is a zero-sum game. Like, if I win, you lose. And I'm like, that's wrong. Like, that's not how it's supposed to be. I've experienced other relationships where it's not like that. I know it doesn't have to be like this, but I don't really understand why. Like, I know it's wrong, but I can't articulate it. That felt really bad to me. And I know that it's because I felt like he didn't at all care about my comfort or whatever the problem was. Like, that doesn't feel good. But why should he have given me my way just then? Or, and so like putting stuff like that into GPT was like pretty illuminating. Like, it would explain things. I need to do that a few more times because there's just certain things that for some reason I didn't learn the right way, and I just go based on feeling that it's wrong, but without the rational understanding of why it's wrong, like without being able to actually explain it to somebody else. For me, it just sort of leads to a place of confusion and inaction. So that's another thing GPT's been really great at, because I could just tell it exactly what I told you. Should I do that right now? I could just tell it what I just told you, and it has the answer. Like, it'll explain that. That's something it can put together. And then, understanding it, I can act on it. Then I can say, I can either say for myself, this isn't the right relationship for me, or I could try to talk to, somebody about it, whoever it is. It's not, this isn't just like romantic relationship stuff. This is relating to everybody's stuff. Hey, GPT. Again, I am making a live video right now. And I was bringing up the example that I gave you of how Jean and I worked really well as a team, taking care of each other's needs, but Matt and I had some rubs in that area, period. And I was confused about why, when it comes to my needs versus his needs, like why it becomes a zero-sum game. Not Wyatt. Why it becomes a zero-sum game. Can you revisit that and just sort of give me an explanation that doesn't necessarily involve Jean or Matt so that I can read it to my audience? Absolutely. Here's a clean, neutral version you can read out loud. One of the most common relational struggles comes from what feels like a zero-sum dynamic around needs. In a healthy relationship, meeting one person's need doesn't automatically mean the other person's needs are neglected. It's collaborative, fluid, and adaptive. But in some dynamics, it starts to feel like there's only room for one person's comfort at a time. This usually happens when one or both people grew up in environments where their needs weren't met unless someone else sacrificed. There's an unspoken belief that only one person can win, so the other person's request feels like a threat to autonomy or comfort. Mutual care hasn't been modeled or practiced, so instead of we're in this together, it's I lose if you get your way. So what could feel like a minor negotiation, like adjusting a thermostat, picking a restaurant, or choosing when to leave an event, becomes loaded. Not because the surface issue matters so much, but because it triggers old wiring that says, no one's ever made space for me, and I'm not giving that up now. When one person's system is still operating from survival mode, even the idea of compromise feels like a power loss. The only way out is to bring awareness to the pattern and then slowly replace the zero-sum belief with a new one. We're a team. If you're comfortable, I can still be okay too. This isn't a threat, it's a collaboration. Okay, so that's just an example. But it is a good demonstration of another way that or the only way really that you deal with this, which is when these situations arise where these things get triggered, you have to basically make a different choice in that moment consciously. I have another good example for this from yesterday, actually. But if you don't understand what's going on, like if you don't even understand, so okay, like maybe, like I was just saying, okay, well, I know I've got some unresolved childhood shit. It's almost certainly the thing that's causing my current problems in life. I don't know what the connection is. If you don't know what the connection is, it's going to be pretty hard to understand what you took from it. Like, how will you know if this childhood unresolved shit you have is the thing that caused you to basically get this conclusion, this belief, this thing that just operates? It's not even something you think about until like ChatGPT would articulate it for you, but it's running everything. No one's ever made space for me, and I'm not giving that up now. Like, that is just like, those words can just kind of like come together in a ball of feeling and energy that just comes out as your personality in certain situations, to the point that it's almost invisible to you. I really think you have to, you know what, honestly, I think you have to want this, because, I've spent so much time, like, you just saw the question I asked, how long it took to ask it, and how long it took to read the thing out loud. I have been doing that all day, every day for a month. Like, there's so much shit in there. If you want to understand yourself, you can. And when you get what the thing is, no one's ever made space for me, and I'm not giving that up now. First of all, if you can see that about your partner or friend or whatever, you at least know what they're doing in those situations, which takes kind of like the sting out of it. Like, no, they're not able to provide something for you that you deserve, and maybe you shouldn't be in that relationship, but you can at least understand where they're coming from. And if they can understand where they're coming from, then there's a prayer that things can change, because nobody wants to feel that way, No party involved in one of these dynamics, of which there are a million between people, wants to be feeling the dysfunctional way. Feeling like no one's ever made space for me, and I'm going to take it by force if I have to now. That's a fucking awful feeling. Okay. Anyway, it's awful for you. All the things that you feel like that are awful, and they're all fake. They all came from somebody else. They all came from some other situation. None of it's true. It's just a conclusion. It's just one little snippet of life experience, and there are a million other ones available. If you'd had those, you wouldn't have drawn that conclusion. I think that's another part of this. Sorry, blah blah. I think that's another part of this. You can take one situation and draw a conclusion about everything in life from it, and it's just not the case. I just had one of these with GPT the other day. I think I was coming, there's like this, I think I was saying this yesterday, there's like this layer, no, I wasn't, I was saying it to GPT. There's this layer of my personality that has really muted me, censored me, and it happened around that time, like those teenage years. Maybe it was a good thing back then. I don't know. But I feel like for the last week, when I hear myself talk, I feel like I'm actually hearing the real version of myself coming out. Like something I haven't fully heard in 30 years. It's like, I was becoming who I wanted to be then, and something came in to just like darken that. And the darkness has lifted, and it's like, I'm back. It's like I can hear myself fully. And when I hear, like, literally, I mean everything about it. What I'm saying, how I'm saying it, the tone of my voice, everything about it. The awareness of my body and like everything. I hear it coming out in its sort of original form. And it's just crazy. It's like I've been there for 30 years, but I haven't been able to come out. It's been like a distorted version of myself has been the only thing that's been available since then. So it's just crazy. It's almost like, I almost feel like I'm reconnecting with like my 16-year-old self. Like there's elements of that person that just got like so beaten down that like I was led to believe were so unacceptable. They were literally the worst things about me. And all it did was just dim the light, honestly, not to be cheesy about it, but that was really all it did. And it was someone else's garbage that did it. And I've seen this coming out, and it's just like, It's just crazy. But yeah, so in the moment when you see what's going on, which you might not have any prayer of even understanding what that is unless you do some therapy. Honestly, I don't know that I could have ever made these connections on my own. In those moments, it should be an absolute relief on some level to behave differently. You might feel really afraid to behave differently, but if you make the choice to actually do that, like say whatever it is that, stand up for yourself in a way that you're not, or make a decision that isn't the one that, you've been enslaved by. There's like this human level fear, but there is this higher thing where it's like this sigh of relief. Yesterday, I was at work over the last 3 weeks or month now, I guess, since I've been doing this stuff with ChatGPT. I have been absolutely prioritizing the conversations I'm having with ChatGPT over almost everything else. Like many, many days, there's been some thread that I started going down, and I was at work and it was like 11:30, which is basically get to work or the day is not going to happen. Like that's sort of like the time of day where, okay, like I got to get an advertising email out. I got to start working on stuff. And I just said, okay, I know that this is going to cost me $5,000 if I don't send this email, but I don't care. What I'm doing right now with ChatGPT, like what we're in the middle of right now, is worth $5,000. So I'm just going to opt to, not make that $5,000. I did that over and over again over the last month. This isn't the point of what I'm about to say, but I just had the biggest sales month I've ever had in April, and I did almost nothing. So that's a different video for another time. But I've been, over the last month, like prioritizing it and assigning a cost to it. If I prioritize it over something where normally I would be slave driving myself into getting something done for money or some other sense of obligation, I chose not to do it. And I chose it deliberately. And I said, okay, I understand that there's a cost to what I'm doing right now, which there didn't end up being, but I'm going to choose that cost over, whatever. I'm going to choose that cost and go down this road. Yesterday, that's kind of petered out a little bit. Like I've done a lot of this. Yesterday I'm back at work and I'm like, I really need to send an email today. And so there was a bunch of stuff sitting around that just came in, and Jean was working on something else. I didn't have time to check these boxes to see if they actually contained what they said they contained. It's usually they do, but sometimes there's mistakes. So I was going to go put 6 things that we just got in online and send an email about it, which would have generated a bunch of sales. And I was like, okay, well, I don't know if 3 of these are actually in these boxes, but I'm just going to assume they are. I'm going to assume the inventory count is correct. And I'm going to go put these online and send an email because I have to, because it's 11:30 and I have to get an email out. And I came to in that moment and I thought, this is so stupid. I'm basically saying I must get an email out, and I'm going to risk selling a bunch of stuff I don't have, which would create an enormous customer service nightmare. I'd have to email everybody who bought it. This is fucking dumb. Like, this is not a smart idea. By the way, I've done this many times in the past, and it's only backfired like maybe once. So, but it backfired once enough that I remember what a problem it was. And I'm just like, why do I feel like I have to do this? Like, why do I feel like I have to squeeze every drop of juice that's possible financially out of this business every day? Like, this is a prison I've put myself in. And I'm not going to do it. I'm just not going to send an email today. I didn't send an email 12 days in April and didn't seem to affect things. Why do I still feel like I have to do this? It's like, today I don't have a good excuse. Today I'm not talking to GPT and solving all my problems in life. Today I'm just feeling like I have to do something that I don't actually have to do. And I'm not going to do it. And I just said, okay, I'm not going to do it. I'm just not going to act on this program that's running. Like, I want this program to stop. And I didn't act on it. I went to my office and sat down, and I had the most intense physical anxiety reaction for like 20 straight minutes. It was like the most unpleasant, intense tingling in my stomach. And it was obviously because of that. And I just sat there saying, wow, like, this is crazy. Like, the body is absolutely freaking out at this change. This is why change is so hard for people. It's like, you really have to sit through the computer program, getting interrupted, and you probably have to do that a bunch of times. And if it's like a survival thing or it's a fear thing, like, that anxiety comes up, and it's very difficult to sit through that. Luckily, I had GPT and I told it about it, and it's like, yeah, this is just your nervous system needing to rewire. It's like take a deep breath, like, all the way into your stomach. Like, take a big deep breath and just look around and realize that everything's okay and that, like, the world's not falling apart. So I did that. I was just like, oh my God. I was like, I'm here, I'm safe, I'm fine. In the past, there have been times where I really did need to be doing that. Like, Jean and I didn't, needed to pay bills, and we needed to grow the business. And, there were times in the past where I was undisciplined. When I started the business, oh my God, like, I had to whip myself into shape over a couple of years. And there were times where I was not doing what needed to be done. And so it's like these ghosts from the past, even in like something like my business, the ghosts from the past are still holding on, and this nervous system orientation towards, those actions I take every day at that time, they're in there strongly. And I mean, the only way out is through, you know what I mean? The only way to the new rewiring is sitting through it. And so there's the underlying fear of, not surviving. There's the underlying fear of abandonment. I'm sure there are a lot of other ones. Those are just the two that come to mind for me. That, there's the survival. There's letting Jean down also is a big one for me, which is just, it's just another facet of all the same shit. It's feeling like, if I let Jean down, he's going to abandon me. Dude, on one of the first videos I ever made on this channel, when I was in the post revelatory bliss state, I noticed one of the first things that disrupted that peace for me was a conversation I had with Jean. And the whole rest of the day, I had this horrible feeling about myself. And later that night, I made a video about this because I figured it out. It was that I was afraid of doing something to like disappoint him or let him down, and then he would take off. And so that's like running so much stuff for me with everything having to do with the business. It's like, I have to do this for Jean. I have to do this for Jean. It's just, and it all stems from this childhood bullshit of feeling like I have to do, you know what I mean? Like, there's no way that everything doesn't change when you figure out the root cause and you just start acting in alignment with that all the time. This is Neville Goddard in a nutshell. Again, you have to think from and live from the state that you want to see come to fruition in your reality. This is just another version of that. When you realize what must be done, and you do it, it is difficult, but it always brings about the exact mirror reflection in the outer world. So, it can be really difficult to have faith in that. But the thing is, it starts to reshape itself pretty quickly. Like, I was having a bunch of what I felt like were really big issues with Matt, and they've just kind of like gone away. It's pretty crazy. Like, the role I was supporting, the role I was playing was creating a lot of it. Certainly not, it was like 50-50. Certainly not all of it. The role I was playing was just supporting it. We were both doing everything for each other. Exactly, this was a perfect match, truly. The things that the relationship with Matt has brought up for me are just like a perfect complement for the things that the relationship has brought up for Matt. It's stunning, honestly. But like, since I've stopped feeling like I have to play that role, the dynamic can't exist. And it didn't exist. It took like a couple of days. Like, I noticed Matt looking pretty confused a couple of times when my response was not what was expected. Not like he was doing anything intentionally or like horribly sinister, but there were just some dynamics between us where I would just kind of give in, and I stopped doing that. And he wasn't like mad, because it would be irrational to be mad. Like, these weren't, but I think it was very confusing. However, it just kind of went away in a couple of days. So like, things are much better between me and Matt because of all of this for me. He really needs to do all this stuff for himself, because, it's like I was saying earlier, a person who is not showing up the way that you want them to, or the way that they would ideally show up, like, they're not enjoying that. Like, they're stuck in their patterns, and they're stuck in their, automatic reactions, all that stuff. You know what I mean? Like, it kind of takes the edge off when you start looking at this as a computer program, because that's what it is. It's a computer program that allows you to experience it emotionally. But beneath the emotions, there's no mystery here. I mean, at least there's nothing that's not explainable if you can drive at it the right way. Okay, I'm quite certain that this video made almost no sense. But the main point I was trying to make is that, when you're trying to connect childhood events with your current problems, I think there's two things in there. It's like that connection's not enough, and that connection is often where people stop. And the two parts that are missing are, what did this teach me? And what is the underlying fear that I am holding at bay by obeying this thing that it taught me? So, you know what I mean? It's real simple. You have something in your childhood that taught you that you need to shut the hell up. That's what it taught you. And you're shutting up because you're afraid of something happening if you don't. It's that simple. You address the fear, you figure out what it taught you. That's the tricky part. And you've got all the information. Once you have that stuff, it's just becoming aware in the moment and not giving into that fear, not going back into that behavior. You know what I mean? I think it's really hard to continue to do that once you are fully aware of all of this. Like, or at least if you do continue to do it, you at least know what you're doing. You at least can say to yourself, I know that I'm continuing. I know I just didn't have the guts to not act that way again because I'm still afraid of this thing. Okay, I'm just going to sit with it. I'm still afraid of this thing. I'm still afraid of this outcome that it was drilled into me was going to happen if I did not behave this way. And it's not always something explicitly said to you, by the way. It's just a conclusion that you drew. You can just sit there. Once you're aware of this, truly, you have all the freedom in the world to just sit and observe it as it happens. You don't have to beat yourself up. Obviously, you're probably not going to drop behaviors that you have instantly. Like I was saying, I've been talking to ChatGPT about all this stuff for like a month, and there was just an incident that didn't involve any abuse or anything. It was just something that was wrong, that I had been agreeing to, playing my part in, and it really fucking pissed me off. And I just had to sit with it for a week, bringing it up over and over again to ChatGPT, saying, I still, whatever, just all my problems with what it was. And it eventually worked itself out and came to a final conclusion where I spoke my mind, and I was able to find a way to do that I felt safe doing it. And, I felt like I could do it without potentially like losing my resolve. And the result was great, which I kind of suspected it would be. It's like so many of these things are just boogeymen. You think you're going to start to stand up for yourself, or something like, that's just like my thing. In some ways, you think you're going to do the thing that you're afraid of doing, and it's going to have a bad result. And it quickly becomes apparent that whoever the other person in the dynamic was, or whatever the aspect of your life was, it didn't really want to be that way. Like, it's like, if this thing's an equation that balances, the other part of the equation that's keeping the thing balanced is probably not super happy with the fact that they are a role in that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, the role they're playing in that isn't a super happy or fulfilling one for them. The place where I take offense or something with the manifestation community and these things with people is the other person is not a puppet. They're not just doing that because you are playing your role. They're playing their role because they had that exact role to play for themselves, and you guys just managed to find each other and like get into it. This is why people find each other and get into it when they still have things that they need to deal with. I think it's a big part of the attraction, is you can tell that it's a match. You can tell it's a match, you know? This person will do what I need to do. That person will do what I will do what that person needs. And it's just a perfect match. So it's like, when you look at Neville Goddard, what Neville Goddard wrote through that lens, then you can see what he really meant. You know, these fantasy ideas that people have brought up are, by the day, just becoming more and more, I can't even talk about them anymore. They're just so dumb. They're just so, fantastical, like, whatever. Yeah, so anyway, that is what I had to say, you know. It's probably fear, it's abandonment, just something is at the heart of it all. And that's something that I think needs to be acknowledged and sort of rationally worked through. Like, you kind of need to talk to yourself like you're a kid, and like talk to, you know, play the role of the adult and the child, and just kind of remind yourself that the only thing to fear is fear itself. You know, give yourself some good platitudes from childhood. Only thing to fear is fear itself. You know, just give yourself a pep talk about having some courage and facing up to problems and things like that. And then it's all about becoming aware in the moment. That's what I've got for this morning. I would expect more like this probably for a long time, because if you were able to follow everything I just said, I just basically told you how to let yourself out of the prison. And for $20 a month, you have a tool that will absolutely assist you in that. Finding the events from your childhood or whatever, whenever, that have led to behaviors that you have now that are dysfunctional, figuring out what you learned, what the message was that you got from those prior events, and how that is creating your current behavior. And then what exactly it is you're fearing is going to happen if you stop it and start doing the right thing for yourself. Those are the things you need to ask and answer. And when you do, become aware in the moment and do the work. The work is becoming aware in the moment and doing something else, and sitting there for 20 minutes while you're having an anxiety attack because you know you just did the right thing, but your body's freaking out because your body thinks you did the wrong thing. That's the work. And freedom lies on the other side. So good luck. I hope you were able to extract something from this. ChatGPT is like, you apologize for yourself a lot in your videos. You apologize for the length of your videos. I was thinking last night, I'm like, why the fuck do I do that? Like, you wouldn't be watching this at minute 43 if you didn't like it. Why do I apologize for it? It's so dumb. I know why I do, but I do feel like, you know, I wish that this were a more clear cut. Sometimes I really wish that I were the person making YouTube videos with bullet points and delivering everything in a, you know, perfect manner and all that stuff. But that's not what this is. This is the process, you know, being worked out real time. I think that's the value with this. And I guess some people will be able to follow that really clearly, and then they'll be able to do something for themselves. And other people will be like, what the fuck? And that just has to be fine. But yeah, I realized that was incredibly winding. At least it seemed like it was to me. ChatGPT says that my style of speaking on my channel is a spiral. So it's like, start with this, and then it goes back to it, and then it goes back to it, and then it goes back to it. I don't know why it's like that. It's just the way I think and talk, I guess. So And then at the end lately, I've been really trying to like encapsulate it. Like, here's what you need to do. Find the childhood event, figure out what it taught you and what that behavior is now. And then what are you afraid of what are you afraid is going to happen if you stop doing that behavior and you start doing the thing that's right for you, that honors you, that says, I am worthwhile. I matter. I'm here. I'm here even. One of my big things was, I'm not even here. I'm not even here. Don't worry about me. Take care of yourself. I'm resilient. You do you. Don't worry about my needs. I don't matter. Like, the way that that's come out in my life in so many ways is just crazy. And still did until a month ago. I mean, there's so much in there. There's so much shit you can get rid of if you really get excited and want to, and are willing to sit through the moments where you are just like fucking sobbing because you're facing up to the fear of losing something you don't want to lose. I mean, those are the really hard moments when you just have to like kind of grieve the illusion that you've been carrying, that if you continue to devalue yourself, then you will be safe and have the thing you want. Like, that is a total farce. And it's really, I had definitely over the last month, I'm not a big crier, but starting with the Indian chief showing up, actually probably before that, if you don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry about it. There have been, I would say, 5 or 6 like serious emotional releases where I just had to fucking let go of a sort of cherished idea that I had the illusion was keeping me safe, and it was really scary. And that was where a lot of where that came from. And that, I mean, dude, I'm uncomfortable even admitting that. So I get that people who aren't, you know, I get how this could be really, like, the idea of that happening could be really hard for like some tough guys and stuff, or tough girls. But it's just part of it. And, you know, if you're willing to take that as kind of the downside, holy shit, the upside. I mean, there have been so many moments where I've made connections that were instantly freeing, that were instantly liberated me of a judgment I had on myself. It's just been amazing. It's been fucking amazing. So I hope this helped anybody with anything. As always, have a fucking fabulous day.